Hello, Marvel fans and my fellow subscribers, and welcome to my latest Marvel video. What with the current situation, I just want to take this moment to say I hope everybody is well during this current time, and hope that you're all staying indoors and staying healthy and staying safe because of the coronavirus issues that are going on at the moment. And if you're watching this after all that has blown over, then hello to you too as well. But, yeah, I haven't really mentioned that yet on my channel, so I thought I'd just do a quick introduction about that. As for me, I'm okay. I was ill about 2 weeks ago, but I'm much better now, so I'm all good. Right, my Marvel ranking, yes. Considering that it's been 2 years since my previous Marvel ranking, and what with the delay of the new Black Widow movie, I thought it would be a good time to actually update my ranking, as I have 4 new films to actually add to the list. So, and there have been a couple of changes to my list. The last time I did this list was when Avengers Infinity War came out, and I actually ranked that movie in the list as well. So there are 4 new movies to add. So there's Captain Marvel, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Endgame, and Spider-Man Far From Home. Those are all going to be added into this list some way or somehow. And yeah, this is just a personal opinion. I'm just doing this subjectively, so you don't have to agree with me. You can disagree, but just be polite about it. That's all I ask. And let's get a discussion going down below. I want to see everybody else's lists. These, I'm going to be giving sort of digest thoughts of the movies. I'm not going to go into details, so if you want a detailed summary of my thoughts, then just watch my reviews. I'm going to add the new ranking in the playlist and remove the old one. So, right, let's begin. Number 23. Taking the bottom spot at number 23 is the Incredible Hulk. Now, what's interesting about this is that I actually recently ranted on the Ang Lee Hulk, and while I will say that the Incredible Hulk is an improvement over the Ang Lee Hulk, that doesn't say anything. It really doesn't say anything. Look, I don't hate the Incredible Hulk, but it's really not very good. I think this film's a bit of a mess, to be honest. Like the Ang Lee Hulk, this is boring. I know, not as boring. The action sequences do nothing for me. I think it's stupid that Betty Ross would just drop her boyfriend like that and go and find going with Bruce Banner, sorry, to find a cure for the gamma radiation in his condition. I mean, in the end, there's kind of no resolution to the story. He just kind of learns to accept his condition and just live with it. Yeah, I don't really know what was the point of the whole story then. And to be honest, it's just such a forgettable movie. I mean, yeah, sure, there's a cool fight with Abomination at the very end, and that's kind of the only good action scene in the film. Tim Roth was kind of pointless in the film, and I just, it was just a real drag to watch, and I didn't think Edward Norton was all that good as Bruce Banner, to be honest. I mean, Mark Ruffalo is the best Bruce Banner and Hulk, and that's not really anything, nobody can change that, for my opinion. Like I said, it's an improvement over the Ang Lee Hulk, and it's not really connected to the Ang Lee Hulk, but my god, it's just, it's a bit dull, and it's the forgotten movie in the MCU. No one talks about this film anymore, and rightly so, in my opinion. It's a bit of a waste of time, to be perfectly honest. But I do quite like the music, I'll give it that, and the CGI is better than the Ang Lee Hulk, so I'll give it that. At least the Hulk's design looks a bit better. Okay, number 22 is Thor: The Dark World. Now, I really don't like Thor: The Dark World. Like, this and The Incredible Hulk are the only ones I really, really don't like. Thor: The Dark World, for me, is just a very empty, shallow film. There's kind of nothing here. The story is fine, although it's just a very by-the-numbers story. It's, you know, it's just setting up for future things. There's really nothing to be gained out of it. The fact that they faked Loki's death was kind of pointless, and it was just a really boring film. I mean, the action sequences are very weightless. They don't do anything for me. The one scene which I do like is the scene when the Queen dies. Not because she dies, but because of the way it was directed. The direction by Alan Taylor is pretty poor for the most part, but in that sequence, the Queen's funeral was done very well. I actually felt something there. And when they lifted the lanterns up for her, that was really, really quite touching. But other than that, Christopher Eccleston is a terrible villain as Malekith. Not his performance, but the character is so bland and just so boring. There's this, at least the first movie had a commentary on science versus magic, and it was sort of interesting because of that. This doesn't really have anything interesting in it. It's just a stupid kind of action film. The one thing I do appreciate is that it did take us back to London. That was nice. It did bring London into the MCU, and London will be revisited, of course, in Spider-Man Far From Home. I didn't think it was really necessary to bring back Natalie Portman's character, nor the Darcy, the comedy character. She just got on my nerves. It was kind of nice to see Stellan Skarsgård return, but Darcy was overused in this film and completely annoying. I mean, the movie's got good visuals, and there's some... Yeah, I suppose the action is not bad, but really, it's not a film I would want to watch again, to be honest. The whole plot about the convergence, it's a load of mumbo-jumbo for me. But it's more entertaining than The Incredible Hulk, so I'll give it that. Okay, number 21 is, unfortunately, Avengers Age of Ultron. Now, Avengers Age of Ultron, it's okay. It's alright. Like, it's just okay. I don't hate this movie, but it suffers from the Man of Steel syndrome, and by that I mean the second act. I mean, the latter of the second act, and the third act is a fatigue to watch. There's battle fatigue in this movie. There is too much action in this film. Joss Whedon had a terrible time making this film, and you could tell. I mean, he kind of just gave up towards the end and said, you know what, let's just have them fucking fight the aliens again. Let's just have them hit something, because this has, been too difficult. And I feel sorry for Joss Whedon in that regard. He found it hard to stitch this one together. It's kind of filler. That's the problem. Age of Ultron is just filler. There's nothing other than some new characters that they introduced, like Vision and Scarlet Witch, the Quicksilver. Other than that, there's not really anything that kind of links into the other movies, unless you watch the end credits scene. This film is really filler, and there is no point I mean, if you skipped Avengers Age of Ultron, you wouldn't be missing a lot. I mean, the only thing it does do is it gives Hawkeye's character a bit more development, because he was kind of sidelined in the first movie, and they didn't really treat his character that well in the first movie. So, yeah. And the stupid romance between Black Widow and Hulk, what the hell was that? I mean, that was just weird. I didn't understand why they chose to do that, because... Think of it, it's just dumb, because, she knows what he's like. She knows that he's this guy who has a rage problem. And quite clearly, I mean, think about kids. If they were to ever have kids, I mean, it would be a bit of a nightmare. And, can you imagine sex with a guy? I mean, my God. I mean, what if he suddenly gets angry and turns green? It's not going to be a pretty sight. So that whole romance plot could have been taken out of the film. And I think the film was too long as well. It dragged on for 2 hours, 20 minutes, and... It really felt sort of quite tedious and monotonous, to be honest. The action was just very repetitive. And also, I don't really like Ultron as the villain. I think they turned him into a joke. I mean, they tried to give him this sort of creepy voice, which I kind of like. But then they just give him these one-liners. They turn him into a joke. He's just cracking jokes, and it's not really threatening. There's a way of being evil and deceptive and being witty at the same time, but it's the fact that they're constantly doing the one-liners. Every other one-liner would be fine. It would be kind of funny and kind of intimidating, but the fact that they do it in every scene, that's the problem, and that's where it starts to get a bit annoying. It's not the actor's fault, it's the way they've written it. It's not very good. And yeah, the whole idea of why they have to create Ultron, I mean, there was no need to create him in the first place, because, the Avengers were protecting the Earth. Like, they caused this themselves, so, what was the point of it? It just seems very unnecessary, and it seems like a load of filler. There are some interesting flashback sequences, I'll give it that, and some, dream sequences during one of the fight scenes, and the Hulkbuster scene is quite good, actually, when Hulk fights the Hulkbuster. That's cool. But other than that, there is nothing in this movie. The music, I guess, is good. Having the Avengers theme come back is nice. And just some of the humour doesn't always work as well, like the whole language thing. Like, it's not the funniest thing in the world. But yeah, it's slightly messy, but there are some enjoyable scenes, but it's not the best. Okay, number 20 is Captain America: The First Avenger. Now, Captain America: The First Avenger, I don't hate the movie. I think it's all right, and it is quite interesting to see a film set in World War One. Sorry, World War Two, I should say. I meant World War Two. And it's quite nice to see that sort of period set film. I do think Hugo Weaving is pretty good as the Red Skull, although he's not in the film as much as I would have liked. I like Chris Evans as Steve Rogers, and I like the way he plays the character, how he's so patriotic and whatnot. And I feel like the action scenes were sort of disappointing in this film, and the film has some real pacing problems. It really dragged quite a lot of the time. The romantic element was quite good. I did appreciate that, but it wasn't the best film. The action could have been constructed a lot better. There was a lot of the action was done in montage sequences, which I didn't think worked in this instance. I mean, it is cool to see how he became the character in his journey, but really, it just took too long to get going, and it's not one that I would ever rush back to. I just don't think the action's very good, and I just don't think it's the most impressive film in the world. It's kind of dull. I mean, the third act is good. The final fight with the Red Skull I do quite like, and the ending of the film is great, and it sets up the Avengers Assemble very well. But it's not the best film of the series. It's not. It's just kind of dull in places, which is a real shame. I remember going to watch it at the cinema actually with my uncle, and it didn't impress us. It didn't impress us very much, to be honest. But there you go. The music is quite good though. I'll give it that. Number 19 is Thor Ragnarok. Now, Thor Ragnarok, I think, is one of the most overrated films in the MCU. I'm sorry. I don't hate the movie. It's okay. Like, it is funny and it is enjoyable, but to me, it's way too much of a departure from the first two films. It is better than the second one, but it almost doesn't feel like a Thor movie. And I know they were trying to change Thor up and make him cooler because he was always considered to be one of the more serious characters. But I think Taika Waititi, while the script is incredibly funny, goes too far, and the look of the film almost looks like Thor is inside a Guardians of the Galaxy movie. It doesn't look right for me. And bringing the Hulk back, I didn't think was necessary in this film, despite the fact that I do quite like the line when he says, "We know each other. He's a friend from work." And that arena fight scene is pretty good, but the whole look of the film I think is just wrong, and it doesn't look right. It looks too much like a sci-fi film. I know Thor is set in sort of another world, but still, it just the whole look of whatever it's called. I can't remember the planet where he ends up. Yeah, you know what I mean, where Jeff Goldblum is. I do like Cate Blanchett in the movie as Hela. She's pretty good, and I like her story. She's one of the better MCU villains, and I like Karl Urban as Scourge. He's a good character. And the use of the song, the Led Zeppelin song, was actually quite cool. I can't deny that. That was pretty damn awesome. But this movie tries too hard to be funny. It tries too hard to be humorous. I mean, not that it isn't funny. It is very funny, and it did have me chuckling on quite a few occasions. But that's all the film was trying to do. And the story wasn't really anything amazing. It was like end of the world. Yeah, who cares? Yeah. I did like Korg though. Korg, the big rock monster. He was quite funny. But it's another typical MCU movie, and it strayed too far from the first two films for me. And yeah, although I do like Tessa Thompson in the movie as Valkyrie. She's pretty awesome, you know. I can't deny that. But yeah, anyway, number 18 is Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel was a very disappointing Marvel movie for me. It wasn't terrible. Like, it was a bit more enjoyable than Thor Ragnarok, even though it kind of suffers from the same problem. It tries too hard to go through the humorous elements. The sci-fi look of the film is quite good, and I do like the character of Carol Danvers. I don't think Brie Larson can't really sell the humorous moments. I don't know. She's a bit. I mean, she's all right, but she's just a bit awkward to me as as Carol Danvers. Check my review out for the extensive thoughts on Brie Larson, but the film was entertaining in places, but the idea of making the green aliens like funny characters, I just thought that was really cheap. Like, why did they do that? Ben Mendelsohn's character ended up being a good guy, and then having Jude Law as like a twist villain. I don't know, it just didn't really work for me. And the film just sort of dragged. It kind of went on, and I mean, it was entertaining. There were some good action scenes, but it drags on, and it kind of gets a bit boring towards the end. And again, like, they're doing the same thing like they did with Guardians, like they're having the 90s music. It's a movie with 90s references, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I mean, I was born in the 1990s, the late 90s, but even so, it just feels like Marvel struggled. Like, they got the story all convoluted, and it was a little confusing to follow, to be honest. And the whole Nick Fury thing, the de-aging of Samuel L. Jackson is pretty good, but the cat taking his eye out, I mean, yeah, that was a little dumb. I can't deny. It was a kind of, it gave me a chuckle, but then I realised, oh, okay, yeah, that is a little stupid. That's how he lost his eye. Oh, yeah. But yeah, I can't deny the cat is cute though. The cat is cute, but it's just not. It's not the most impressive film. I mean, considering that Wonder Woman came out a couple of years before, it's, well, I think Wonder Woman's easily the better film. Okay, moving on. Number 17 is Iron Man 2. Iron Man 2 is a decent film. It's not as good as the first one. It is the weakest of the trilogy, by far. But I don't think Iron Man 2 is as bad as everyone says it is. Yeah, I think the problem with Iron Man 2 is, yes, it is a bit convoluted. It's a bit... It can be a bit overblown at times. There's a bit too much going on in Iron Man 2. I think the pacing drags at certain moments as well. In the second act, when Tony is trying to create the new element for his chess piece, I don't get the whole thing with the chess piece that it's keeping him alive, but it's killing him at the same time. Like, what? I don't quite understand that. He's having to drink chloroform to stabilize it. I don't really understand that. That's a little bit confusing. It's a bit rushed, I think, in places. There's some good action scenes, I'll give it that, but there's not a lot of action in the film. I do think Don Cheadle is a better roadie than Terrence Howard. I'll give him that. And Gwyneth Paltrow is good as Pepper Potts, and of course Robert Downey Jr. is amazing as Tony Stark. I mean, there's no question about it. He's just great. I think the villains are good, I guess. I guess Ivan Vanko as Whiplash. I guess I kind of liked him. I don't really remember much about my opinion of him, to be honest. He's just kind of, he's just sort of there. And the racetrack scene is quite good. And Sam Rockwell was Justin Hammer. He was alright, I suppose. I mean, it was a good introduction to Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow. I'll give it that. There was some good comedy. The film made me laugh, but nothing really stands out about Iron Man 2. That's the problem. There's nothing that stands out about it, and it's a bit overblown. There's too much going on in the film, and it doesn't have the sort of finesse of the first one, which is a real shame. But I still think it's decent. There's enough to enjoy. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Iron Man 2. So number 16 is Ant-Man and the Wasp, the second film of the Ant-Man series. Now, I actually do like Ant-Man and the Wasp. It is a fun movie, but that's basically it. It's fun. It's just fun. Again, this is another one that's kind of filler. You don't necessarily need it in the grand scheme of the series, but it's a nice continuation after the first one. And it is interesting. It is interesting how they're trying to go into the quantum realm to get back Hope's mother. And I do like the return of Scott Lang and Hope and their relationship, how that gets back on track. For me, the problem is, again, it's just very formulaic. It's just another MCU movie. There's too much reliance on humour. There are some great action scenes, though. I have to say, the action sequence of the car chase is so fun when they're all trying to get the lab and they're increasing the size of the cars, decreasing the size of the cars. We've all seen that moment in the trailer when the Peps, Hello Kitty Peps thing is enlarged and goes on the road. That's quite funny. There are some funny moments here, but I think the comedy is like forced. Like the whole truth serum joke just goes on too long, and it just, I don't know. It just kind of it just kind of goes on. And I mean, there's too many people going after this lab. You've got this, you've got Hank Pym, Scott, and Hope. You've got Sonny Birch. You've got Ava, who's Ghost. There's just too many people involved in this story. I do like the villain though, Ava, as Ghost. Sorry, I think the actress is called. Oh god, I can't actually remember her name. To be fair, I'm sorry, I can't remember her name. But she's a fairly new actress. But I thought she was really good, and I liked her personal backstory of that she was phasing and she was just dying. She wasn't doing these evil things to be evil. She just was trying to save her own skin, and she had days left to live, and she just wanted the energy from the quantum realm to revive herself and to stop herself from phasing out. And I thought that was she was a really good character, and I liked her personal story. And Michelle Pfeiffer was obviously very good as the mother, Janet, who only appears briefly in the film, but still, there's some good emotional scenes here. And I do think Paul Rudd is a very good, engaging screen presence as Scott Lang, and I like the whole thing that he's under house arrest, and his daughter actually covers for him, which is quite funny. It's a good little film, and it is a good, entertaining 2 hours, but I don't think it's as good as the first one, because it doesn't offer anything new. It's just the same formula. And other than Ghost, it doesn't really offer anything new, and it relies too much on comedy. But I can't deny that it is entertaining, and it is very fun. Okay, number 15 is Spider-Man Homecoming. Yes, a lot of people are going to be shocked that this is so low. Well, I'm sorry, but I think Spider-Man Homecoming is overrated. It is really overrated for me. Look, I like this movie. It's an enjoyable film, but for me, Spider-Man Homecoming has no dramatic weight. There is no emotional punch, which made the Sam Raimi movies brilliant. It kicks the shit out of the Amazing Spider-Man films. I'll give it that. I liked Vulture as the villain, and it was kind of a good twist that he ended up being Liz's dad. I thought that was quite cool. That was really fun. For me, the pacing, it sort of drags in the middle. It is too long. I think Spider-Man Homecoming could have been trimmed down a bit. Tom Holland is magnetic as Peter Parker, though, in Spider-Man. I can see why they cast him, and he's very athletic, and he's definitely the most physical actor to play the role. My heart still belongs to Tobey Maguire. Tobey Maguire is always going to be my favourite Spider-Man, but Tom Holland is a close second. He beats Andrew Garfield easily. I think the action sequences are pretty good for what they are. I like his best friend Ned. He's quite a funny character, and the main girl of the film, Liz, she's good in her scenes that she's in. Zendaya features briefly as MJ, although she will get more to do in Far From Home. Marisa Tomei, I think, is a bit of a weird choice for Aunt May, and I don't like the way they sexualized her. It's just a bit awkward, because I know in the past they've had older actresses play the role, and I guess they were trying to do something different, which is fine, and it is more realistic in this universe that because of how young Peter is, that he would have an aunt who is slightly younger than Rosemary Harris or Sally Field. So, but at the same time, like the moment when they're in the cafe, and then the guy gives her that free dessert, and he gives her a wink and stuff, and it's like, what the fuck? It's just weird to see that character sort of sexualized, because by this movie's timeline, it looks as though that Uncle Ben has only recently passed away. Obviously Civil War was the first time we saw Tom Holland as Spider-Man, and that wasn't long before Homecoming. So yeah, I don't mind Robert Downey Jr. being in the movie so much. He's in it, for a few moments. They didn't need to use him so much, but the whole point was him sort of mentoring the kids, so yeah, I could kind of see that. The suit was cool, though. It's a different type of Spider-Man suit, whereas before, in the previous versions of the character, like Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire, he'd made the suit himself, whereas this time, Tony Stark provides all the suits for him, and it's all full of technology and everything like that, which is quite good, I suppose. But yeah, like I said, it's the pace of it which it just drag at certain points, and there's no dramatic weight to it. I didn't feel the emotional punch that I wanted, which I had in the Sam Raimi movies, which is a shame. But it's an entertaining film, and it is is well done. It is well done, but it's nothing impressive. I don't. It's just a fun high school movie. But there we go. But Tom Holland is amazing though. Okay, so number 12. Sorry, no, not number 12. Okay, so number 14 is Thor. Now, again, this might shock you that I put it over Spider-Man Homecoming, but, well, I like the first Thor movie. I really do. I think it's got a great villain. Loki is absolutely terrific. Tom Hiddleston is just perfect in this role, and he's behind Thanos, probably the second best MCU villain. I mean, there's not many great villains in the MCU, but he's one of them. I love the whole concept of science versus magic and that sort of argument. The problem with this movie is that we spend a bit too much time on Earth. I would have preferred to spend more of the movie on Asgard before he gets banished, but still, Asgard looks great, and I think Chris Hemsworth gives a great performance, and I do like the action sequences of the film, and the finale is good, although he just fights a big, almost Sentinel-looking thing at the very end. It would have been nice to see him have a bit more of a confrontation with Loki, but still, I think Natalie Portman's good as Jane in the movie. I mean, Darcy, the comedy character who's overused in the second one, isn't quite as overused in this one, which is good. And for me, this just tells the best story. I mean, Kenneth Branagh directs the movie quite well. There's something kind of Shakespearean about it, which is kind of interesting, and the idea of kind of kingdoms and the way they talk and everything. I mean, I do love the look of this film, and I like the lore behind Thor, and it's a good action movie. It's a good movie. It's nothing impressive, and it does slow down a bit in the second act, and I think the comedy is a bit forced when he's on Earth and he's trying to adjust to life on Earth as a human. He doesn't. It doesn't work quite as well, but it's a solid movie. I think it's a good, decent film. It's good fun, and it's the best of the Thor trilogy by far. And I do like the music. Okay, so number 13 is Spider-Man Far From Home. I actually watched this movie again recently, and when I first saw the film, I was kind of uncertain about how I felt, but looking at it now, it is definitely better than Homecoming. I'll give it that. It is a bit better than Spider-Man Homecoming, but for me, it's kind of the same as Homecoming. It's just, except they're not in school, they're actually on a trip, which is the only difference. They go on a trip around Europe, so there's more locations, which I do appreciate. Again, the comedy doesn't always work. Like, the whole idea of Ned getting in a relationship with Betty, the blonde, really attractive looking girl, it's just kind of weird because, I mean, let's face it, I mean, I don't mean any disrespect to the guy, but he's quite a big guy, and it's like they have one plane ride together and then they just fall in love. Like, it's played up for comedy, but it just feels unnatural to me. I mean, I do like Tom Holland in the movie. He is very good, and like how he's trying to get over the death of Tony Stark, but also he's trying to win over Mary Jane, and, well, MJ as they call her, played by Zendaya. Zendaya's great in the movie. She gets a bit more to do, and I love their relationship because they've changed the nature of her character. She's quite much more of a dork. She's very sarcastic. She's very kind of cutthroat. Some of her comments are quite sort of cutthroat, very sarky and whatnot, but in a hilarious kind of way. So they've kind of made them all equally matched, which I really like. I actually really like Mysterio as the villain. I think Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio is pretty good, and when you realise he is the villain, I mean, doing the kind of twist villain thing is annoying, but I mean, why do it as a twist? We all knew Mysterio was going to be the villain. We knew he was going to be the villain. There was no need to do it as a twist. It's completely unnecessary that you would choose to do that. But yeah, like when he gives him the glasses, then the whole pub is an illusion, and it changes into his little hideout, and he's revealed as the villain. It was like, well, he's the villain in the comics, so it was kind of obvious that he was going to be the villain. I don't know why that we thought otherwise. They didn't need to set it up as a twist. I think the first act of the film is a little slow. It does take a bit of time before they get going, but once they get going, it is very entertaining. And I think the action is a lot better than Spider-Man: Homecoming, actually, and I like the fact that we go to London. Actually, that's really cool. When we have the climax of the film in London, which is nice, and it's very rare for the MCU to do that. The only other time they've done that is Thor: The Dark World. I love the score by Michael Giacchino, although I do miss that Spider-Man theme that he composed for the first film. I like the love scenes between Peter and MJ. They're really cute. They're a really cute couple, and I like the new suit as well that he has. And Tom Holland is a worthy Spider-Man. He really is, and he's going to be around for a long time. And I really hope he is, because he deserves it. He's a really nice guy in real life, in interviews, and he's a very talented performer. So yeah, and I mean I like this film. I just don't think it's anything amazing. It's good. It's good and it's entertaining. But it's another MCU film. Let's just put it that way. Yeah.